Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by Drew Bentock of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, and Pete Sampson of The Athletic. Guys, it's Pittsburgh week. Odds makers have the Irish favored by double digits, but at least one national pundit believes that spread could be closer to triple digits. I don't think it'll get there. If so, it's going to make I actually think it'll make our jobs a lot harder writing about this game if it does approach that, because there would be a lot of things to look up. But we spent 7 minutes instead of 15 with Marcus Freeman. That was a bit of a surprise. I guess not enough questions were queued up for this one. Just all of a sudden abrupt ending. But it wasn't, I think it was our fault, not theirs. But nothing really to glean as much from the conversation today. But the injury report has been updated. Out for the game, Noah Burnett, not unexpected. Jaden Greathouse has been downgraded to out. Heinisch remains in concussion protocol, but Pete, I think concussion protocol 1 week after concussion protocol is automatic on Thursday. I don't think you get out of it in time.
Yeah, you're probably right, and I think there's always like the practice element, like how much do you actually need if you're a veteran and a captain like Heinisch. Never mind like the emotional component, which
Yeah.
does not overcome a concussion, but still, it's something that would you'd want to speed it up if you're Donovan Heinisch as much as possible. So yeah, I would seem even like Cooper Flanagan. I realize we're inside the 4 game threshold here, but even just like being at interviews and I think it was last week going into Navy, John and I were talking and it was like, oh, there's Cooper Flanagan not dressed for practice. Which you're like, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit more than just saving the 4 games. You notice the same thing about Jaden Greathouse this week. You're just like, oh, he's out there, but not dressed for practice. So, yeah, that's sort of where they are with injuries.
Yeah, I agree with Flanagan too. Like an Achilles injury is, I mean, he came back exceedingly fast as it was to get back there and play a little bit against USC. So I agree the four games and keeping him to that is important too. But also like that, I mean, I'm still surprised he has been back in practicing even as much as he has to a degree.
I think JB that if he doesn't play against Pitt, you got to let him rest all the way until the middle of playoff practice at this point, right? Because you don't need he would be your third tight end. He's not overtaking Ty Washington on 1 foot right now. He'd be your third tight end going into Syracuse, and that just seems silly.
Yeah, if you can't go this weekend, but there's nothing to lose by playing him in one of those final 2 games. I think my plan would be continue to get him as ready as possible and then base it on some of the external factors such as weather. I mean, you're not going to send a guy out there who's truly, as Drew noted, really been ahead of schedule in his recovery from an Achilles, which most often takes a full year rather than kind of the similar timeline to an ACL. But if it's nice weather that last Sunday or Saturday at Stanford and you feel like you can use him, he can help you, and you can get him some work before the week off and learning your playoff fate and all of that. I think Flanagan appearing in one more game to 2 more games would be really beneficial for Notre Dame transitioning to the postseason.
Really, the only takeaway from Freeman today, Jack Sobel asked about Madden Faremo. I think he wanted to know more about Faremo's possible impact going forward this season, but it was a good point that for the freshman to get 29 snaps, more than 3 other backers. I know Drake Bowen probably would have played more than Faremo if it was not a blowout, but for him to get that many snaps in a week where you can't learn it that quickly. Usually, that's at least speaks well for his instincts as a young player.
I thought that was, I mean, it's interesting for the future, which I think it was phrased that way, but not really answered that way. Because it's like we talk about roster construction all the time. Like the staff has to absolutely nail their internal evaluations during the season more than they ever have in the past. Because it's like, how much money do you allot here? Do you let a guy go because you want to invest in a younger player? Like Madden Faremo is one of those younger players that the staff seems to feel great about. And if they feel as good about him as his sort of playing time has suggested, that impacts, how you allot the rev share this
Yeah.
offseason. So I think that it's maybe not that significant for the next month and a half, but it is very significant for what comes after the season.
I
Yeah,
think yeah, go ahead, JB.
I was just going to say, I think like the discussion we had the other day, it's just you have to be in the number crunching phase right now, not just at Notre Dame, but at programs all around the country. We just have a little bit more of a first person view here in South Bend. Guys like a Billy Schrauth and Ashton Craig and Emil Wagner have very real decisions, especially Craig and Schrauth, because they're injured more so than Wagner, being health versus what his stock is per NFL scouts and all of that. But money is an issue. You guys, as we said, aren't anticipating taking a pay cut. Nobody works for a year and expects to go into the next year making much less money. And yet we don't know exactly how Notre Dame had its budget structured, but you have to imagine that it was structured that some of those guys would be gone because they'd played a lot of football and would have opportunities at the next level. And there's also the fact that some of those guys can grad transfer out and get seven figures for a single year. And their Big Ten offensive linemen not nearly as good as Emil Wagner, who are making 1.2 to 1.3 million this year. And I know that directly from people involved.
Yeah, and that's a position where, realistically speaking, August 31st, Notre Dame could have had its final meeting for NIL, or August 28th, and they could have said to Mike Martin, I mean, some of these guys are just going to go pro because they're going to have good years and they're going to give it a shot, and they're graduating seniors like Schroth, like Craig, and like Wagner potentially. You would have guessed those guys going pro actually before the season, not because they're going to be a high draft pick, because hey, it's time. You're gonna, you've proven yourself. You made it back from injury. Why come back again? But now all three are up in the air, but you can't pay all six because Charles Jagasa is involved in
Right.
that as well.
Yeah, so that's why Jagasaw, in addition to being a physical help this year, if he's able to return any in the postseason and you get any kind of extended look out of him, gives you a little bit better idea of how to manage that roster and manage that group and manage the finances as you make the transition whenever this season ends.
Last time Notre Dame went out to Pittsburgh, Pete Sampson, we did this show and it was 45-3. The 10-point spread, by the way, the last time they went out there. This spread started at 10, has moved to 11.5. Pittsburgh came to Notre Dame, lost 58-7 on a 21-point spread. And that was actually the impetus for Pat Narduzzi saying he didn't mind if they lose 110-10 or 103-10, because that's what it was the last two games. Now, the one issue I have with that, before we get into it, and I don't care enough to get into it too much, but I want to turn over to you guys. It is pretty important to beat Notre Dame if you're going to win out and win the ACC, because then you get a home game if you're Pitt. So really, the Notre Dame game does matter a lot more than Pat Narduzzi was suggesting. It's not like they're 5-4 hoping to win the ACC.
Super weird commentary from Narduzzi, which like I think we've kind of come to expect at this point. But the fact that he had 103 on the tip of his tongue, I thought was amazing. Because that's the point total the last two times Notre Dame played Pittsburgh. But like they are banged up on defense, and from that point of view, I get it. Like it's completely reverse from what Notre Dame is, where you're like, this is your last test, this is the most important game. Like he's right, it's Pitt's least important game. And if you have like their star linebacker has been a little bit banged up, if you want to like give him an extra week because you're like, hey, Georgia Tech and Miami are bigger games for us, and we don't want Gerby Lambert to drive this dude into the ground, or Jeremiah Love to tear his, bust his both of his ankles, maybe his Achilles and ACLs too. Like, I get that. It was just a super weird way to go about it. But I understand the point he's making. It just was the message was way, way off.
I do. I felt the same thing, Pete, and it was told to me that right before that, a reporter had asked him about the rivalry and being outscored 103-10
Okay.
in the
All right.
last two meetings, and that's why 103 was on the tip of his tongue. I can also tell you that those comments didn't go over real well within the own Pittsburgh football building. There was
No.
a lot of befuddlement there. Like people were like, "What is this? Why is
Yeah,
he?"
You're bringing Aaron Donald back for this?
Yeah, what do you like? What is going on here? His point is right. Like this game is absolutely must win for Notre Dame. It is not absolutely must win for Pitt. Pitt must win against Georgia Tech. Pitt must win against Miami. I would contend this game is very much must win for Pitt to be seen as a true viable playoff team and a true team that is a quality college football team worthy of being discussed among the top 15 or so teams, and that it's 6 game winning streak isn't overly hollow, and that it's not the same team that lost to a completely rebooted West Virginia team or that blew a 17-0 lead at home to a Louisville team that was capable of losing at home last week to Cal, which is also part of what college football is this year. On the health standpoint, I don't really. Um, I don't think Narduzzi has room to talk there. Pitt is coming off of its final bye of the season, and in talking with people in the Pitt, in Pitt this week, they feel they're the healthiest, quote, in 6 weeks. Quote, we're the healthiest we've been in 6 weeks. So I think that's significant. Now, you can be healthy and do what you just said, Pete. Save those guys, a couple of those guys for the ACC games that truly are must win, but don't bring that into the equation. That's whiling away stuff.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that that question was planted, but he was so enthusiastic and had that ready to go in a way that I was just like, man, you've been thinking about how little you want to care about this game for whatever reason, which part of me was like, if it were a different coach who wasn't Pat Narduzzi, I would think it was some like Jedi mind trick he was trying to play to pump Notre Dame up and reach them in the media and maybe doing the opposite in his own building. But as you just pointed out, JB, that doesn't sound like that was the case. So I don't think there's any mind games going on with that. I think he just wanted to diminish Notre Dame's impact in the rivalry to a degree.
Pat Narduzzi thinking about Notre Dame. Come on now, but methinks he doth protest too much.
I believe so as well. Getting into our Pittsburgh preview segment, I wanted to include a question from EastX903. It's a good one because people haven't really followed Pitt coming into this point. No offense to Pat Narduzzi. Where does this Pitt offense and quarterback rank versus the others? And what about the defense as well? And by others, he means who Notre Dame has faced so far.
I
Why
mean,
higher on defense than offense, Pete?
yeah, I mean, offensively, it's fourth, but like I think there's a pretty big gap between fourth and fifth. So this will be a legit test for the defense. It's I know there's a question about the pass defense in the second section, but like Notre Dame's right at 24th in pass efficiency defense, which is a long way from first, but it's also a long way from like 97th, which is kind of where they were in September. So I I can't wait to see what Dallas Golden looks like and how healthy Christian Gray is, and if Leonard Moore's ankle is really as good as it seems to be. So it's a huge test for that secondary, which I think we all have come to be confident in. But this is the offense is this is a legit offense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like the Pitt offense. They're unorthodox in some things, but they're completely different unit with Mason Heinschel as quarterback. And when you talk to people, there was a belief that Heinschel really had won the job and outperformed Holstein in spring. But I guess when you have a $7 million or a 7-figure price tag, you get the benefit of the doubt to at least get to start the season, or that's how it was explained to me. So, but Heinzel is the guy. He's got that it factor. We discussed it this morning on the Football Scoop podcast. He's been compared very favorably around those parts to Kenny Pickett, but been very strongly emphasized to me that he's way advanced for Kenny Pickett, not just freshman to freshman, but way advanced over Kenny Pickett for his first couple of seasons for what Heinzel is doing through 5 games. He has a much better rapport with offensive coordinator Cade Bell. In some of those earlier games, I think you could see Holstein and Bell kind of bickering on the sidelines. Now, one thing to note about the Pitt offense, and it can move at some tempo, it does some unorthodox things. It's also not really known for playing the most complementary football, which can bite it at times because they're not really good necessarily at melting the clock or running the clock out when they need to run the clock out, or if they want to run 4-minute offense in the last possession of the second quarter, or they need to run 4-minute offense in the last possession of the game. That has not been a Cade Bell offensive strength.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Drew. But interestingly enough, I wanted to throw in here, Drew, real fast. 55 red zone trips, which is fourth nationally out of Power 5 teams. We're talking Ole Miss, Indiana, Texas Tech, and Pitt. But the reason you don't hear anything about it, 30 touchdowns in 55 red zone trips, 97th. How's that possible?
Wow. That's incredible. And just comparing the quarterbacks too, I think it's maybe underrated how good of the quarterbacks Notre Dame's played this year. I mean, you could argue that Mason Heichel, for as well as he's played, is the sixth best quarterback Notre Dame would receive has faced this year. Bill Connolly for ESPN just actually ranked the Power Four quarterbacks today. Jaden Maava from USC was fifth. Taylon Green from Arkansas was 10th. Marcel Reed from A&M was 12th. CJ Bailey from NC State was 20th, and then Heichel was 25th, and Carson Beck was right behind him from USC. So it's actually been Notre Dame's faced some pretty good quarterbacks, and that's part of the reason why they struggled so much with pass efficiency defense. That and them looking like they don't know what they're doing at times.
I think one more key, and I there's a story about this. You can read about it on irishillustrated.com, but you don't want to read it right now because it's too many numbers. I'm not going to use all those numbers. We don't like numbers on this, right, Jack Freeman? Notre Dame's goal to go offense is actually maybe the biggest culprit in the fact that they have a quality touchdown percentage in the red zone, but they have a poor scoring percentage. They're bottom five in the country. They've not scored in 25% of their red zone trips. That just seems crazy when you think about it. There's only three missed field goals in there. I know it feels like seven because they missed four extra points. There's three missed field goals in there. There's two fumbles lost. Remember, Price did not lose his other fumble. There's an interception by CJ Carr, and there's a couple turnovers on downs. I really think goal to go offense is important in this game because Notre Dame will drive on Pitt. But when you talk about Joe Otting and Sullivan Absher instead of Schroth and Craig, I think that's where Pitt's kind of salty defensive line could change some things. When Notre Dame gets a 71-yard drive, they got to come out of there with six more often than not, but they cannot come out empty like they have been a couple times.
I'm not opposed to spreading them out in goal to go now. One, Faison's really good at it when you get the ball to him. I like that matchup against pretty much anybody. But I mean, to your point, they're just not that good at running the ball. Like I don't need to see 12 personnel on first and goal at the 3. Well, maybe first and goal, but when it's second and goal at the 5, I really
Right.
don't need to see 12 personnel. So I'd like to see them spread it out a little bit more. I'm not saying you need to like go empty, but that might not be the worst idea either. Or just figure out a way to really force a defense's hands and throw a jump ball to Malachi Fields. I can't remember if it was Boise State or NC State, but Carr threw like this 6-yard fade in the end zone to Fields. I generally don't like that play because it's like pretty unimaginative. But if you have CJ Carr and Malachi Fields, I think it's a great use of the talent you have on hand. I like to see Notre Dame try something like that, maybe a little bit more.
It was Boise State. Go ahead, guys. That was part of the study. Yeah. I'll
Uh,
email you the study, Pete. You can look at all the
Yeah.
plays. Yeah, that's great.
if it's first and goal at the 2, I would like to see under center and a little bit more. I'm okay with 12 personnel there. Otherwise, I've said in previous weeks, I really like Faison out into the flat. He has incredible agility. He does a great job of staying low to the ground. He knows how to use his body. I think that's maybe when we see his lacrosse background the most, or some of those when he's running it at the sticks or running it at the pylon. I'm with Pete. I think you could set up the fade to Malachi Fields. I also believe you could throw the fade to a guy like Eli Raridan, depending on how Pitt wants to play it. But we know Pitt's stubbornness to want to play man and want to bring their safeties closer to the line of scrimmage and want to really get after your ass. And so I think because of that, you can do some things in the throw game. But good Lord, you're Notre Dame. You have Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, that offensive line, Eli Raridan. If you're a goal to go at the 2, my colleague at Football Scoop, Zach Barnett, I wish I had the hyperlink handy. You can Google it. He did, and that was not a Kurt Signetti reference to Google it, but he did a story on a big study that was done about how futile shotgun is on third and short, fourth and short, or goal to goal situations. And it's a disservice the way that teams continue to lean so much onto it based on what the data. In an era where coaches everywhere are using analytics and data to inform decisions more than ever before, the data here was irrefutable, and yet here we are having this discussion.
Yeah, I also think it's underrated that sometimes, for as good as Love and Price are, they're not the best at just wanting to plow through the line for 1 or 2 yards. Like they always are looking to make those big runs. And sometimes I think Love has gotten better at it, but even earlier in the year, he would be trying to maybe bounce something outside or looking for something bigger than just being like, I know I can get 2 yards. I'm strong and powerful. I'm gonna go get it. So I think
Well, don't
maybe
you? I mean,
sometime.
I was gonna say like, don't you, I feel like he's a lot better at that now. And
Yeah, I think he's gotten
my issue
better.
is more like he's getting hit in the backfield. Which
Yeah.
isn't like a home run issue. It's like you're not blocking this up, or you can't. You just don't have the math right in the box. I don't think Notre Dame does a great job of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just mean like based on our perception of them versus just what they
Yeah.
do in those situations. Maybe that's not their ideal situation, but I agree. There are times even against Navy where you'd give him the ball and he was trying to make three guys, even on that touchdown run, he had to make multiple guys miss to then get to the guy who tackled him and didn't bring him all the way to the ground. So you're definitely right about that.
Very quickly, I just read over the passing. It looks like Carr has passed 14 times out of 64 snaps in goal to go. Eight were completed, seven of them were touchdowns, of course. I included 2 point conversion because those points count also. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but yeah, that does count. And then he had the interception, a sack, and then he ran out of bounds. The other interception, but the running out of bounds one, I'm counting a pass play, even though he did not pass it because that was obviously a called pass play. So yeah, I'd like to see Carr. I guess he's pretty good as long as he doesn't take the sack, huh? In that situation, there's two of them right there as he took 2 sacks out of the 5 or 6 failures. So the final thing I guys want to talk about before we go to segment 2 is I have a theory that the third Notre Dame defensive back, when they're going to get caught in that do we play man, do we play zone, helps decide the tenor of this game because USC had 3 receivers. That's kind of stressed Notre Dame. A&M and Miami also, I don't want to go to that one quite as much because that was the beginning of the year. But when you have 3 receivers like Pitt, and I kind of narrowed it down to Raphael Williams Jr. because he's the slot receiver, his matchup with Devontae Smith or Dallas Golden is really intriguing to me because you figure Leonard Moore and Christian Gray healthy can handle their business. Leonard Moore completely, Christian Gray most of the time. I think that slot nickel is the matchup of the day for Pitt's passing offense.
Oh, 100%. I mean, having Devonta Smith healthy for Pittsburgh was not something I would have had in September. As like, hey, this is really critical. But I think it's really critical for Saturday because I just think he is physical to help you in the run. He's reliable. He knows where to be. Is Dallas Golden a better athlete? Probably. But I think that what Smith gives you from a physicality standpoint really, really will play well. And like, what happens when they go 6 DBs? They played a lot of 3 safety type stuff. You know, how does Pitt try to match up maybe Luke Talich on a slot receiver or running back down the field? That's kind of interesting too.
They do like Desmond Reed in the passing game, and it was kind of accentuated by our Pitt insider mention. He is probably healthier than he's been since week 2 or week 3, but they like him more in the passing game almost than getting a matchup one-on-one with linebackers. But Notre Dame doesn't mind a lot of one-on-one linebacker matchups either.
That was getting ready to be my next point was Desmond Reed, the health of Desmond Reed and the impact of Desmond Reed. And, he hasn't played since the end of October. They've been letting him heal up for this stretch run. Again, we know from Mr. Narduzzi that they don't have to have him in this game because they don't have to win this game. But to win this game, they have to play Desmond Reed. I really believe that. And he does. He slides out of the backfield really well. Cade Bell loves using his running backs in the throw game. I think Mason Heinschel has developed a rapport with Reed, even though they've only had maybe three to four games together. But they work together a lot in the spring, I was told. So yeah, I think Reed is the X factor for the matchup you're talking about, T.O. I think Reed, his effectiveness and his overall availability and volume of availability play directly into what Pitt does with the slot receiver and how Notre Dame has to defend that.
Yeah, I think this is where it's huge too. That I mean, feel like if you're going to try and pick on a Notre Dame linebacker in pass coverage, you'd go at Drake Bowen and seeing what he's done over the last few weeks in that regard. I mean, he made at least one fourth down stop against USC. I mean, I feel like we've talked about the Hollywood Smothers coverage, who at the time was the nation's leading all-purpose backer. So I think that's definitely something they'll try and do, but that's something we've seen the linebackers be much better in coverage outside of Snead. I think they're all pretty consistent and reliable in that capacity.
Snead going forward. That's what you need from Jalen Snead on third down, attacking the pocket. Irish fans, you remember Rocket Ismail, his speed, his signature, his impact on Notre Dame football. Now you can wear his legacy. Signature Pro Apparel's Rocket Ismail collection is officially open for pre-order, featuring premium polos and rugby shirts, each embroidered with Rocket's authentic signature and officially licensed by Notre Dame. Pre-orders will ship in mid-November, perfectly timed for holiday gifting. Visit signaturepro.com and use code IRISH20 to save 20% before pre-orders close. That's signaturepro.com, legacy in every thread. We'll be back with segment 2, burning up the boards. With football season in full swing, I've been looking to find the best deal on Notre Dame tickets, both for family and friends, but now as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's Burning Up the Boards, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. So whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket to the AC/DC concert in September, or any of college football's season-defining matchups down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad, and every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capital letters and the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with promo code IRISH10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it again later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Our first question's a two-parter, and it's actually being directed to JB at first from Twickenham, ND. Pete, that could be either your neighbor or my old neighbor, Twickenham Hills. JB, can you explain the Big Ten private equity deal to me because I am not an ND grad? And Jeff Alwine goes a little bit funnier with, what in the world is happening with the Big Ten versus USC and Michigan? And depending on how this plays out, how could it affect college football in Notre Dame? Please explain this to me like I'm Troy Nicholas.
Wow. So knowing that question was coming and knowing that I've studied it some, but have very limited bandwidth in my brain for numbers, as is well documented here, I did reach out to the incomparable Jess Bryce, who has done some private equity stuff in the past, and she helped me craft an explainer. But the easiest, most condensed version is like it's infusing capital funding into these colleges or conferences for the conferences to distribute or the individual colleges right now. And it's basically an investment. You're betting on media rights being worth more in 5 years than what you're giving for those media rights right now, or you're betting on team value and the revenue generated from those teams being worth more than what you're investing right now. A lot of it has to do with the fact that these colleges are incurring rising costs at a pace that they are not sure how to sustain. I've noted this on the podcast before, as well as on the Football Scoop podcast. And it's common sense once you take the time to think about it, but you're like, oh, they've got to distribute 20.5 million in revenue if they're opting in or they opted in for the max participation in year one. So they just have to distribute that money. Well, that's not new money. It's not that they opt in and say, oh, great, we're going to distribute the max because we're going to get that money and distribute it. You have to find that money. That money has to come from your budget or it has to be raised anew. And as expenses soar for many different reasons in college athletics, but especially for funding rosters or in some schools funding facilities, that's not an issue at Notre Dame. Notre Dame doesn't do a facility until it has secured full funding, much like Shields Family Hall. That's where the private equity component comes in. But it's basically you're hedging your bets if you're private equity and you're wanting to invest. You're buying in right now at a certain stake, and you believe the capital money that you input into those programs or conferences now is going to generate a positive return on investment in whatever the term is, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You're investing in the future, and history is on your side because we rarely ever, if ever, there might have been one media rights deal where the renewal was worth less than the initial. But take, for example, Notre Dame. I was told this week that Notre Dame's new NBC deal that was announced late last year pays the Fighting Irish somewhere in the upper 40s to mid 50s on a yearly basis. I was told it wasn't quite what every Big Ten team was getting for obvious reasons, but that it was very good and only about 10 million behind what Big Ten teams were getting. And this was someone with intimate familiarity with the ongoings. And Big Ten teams were distributed $63-ish million as part of their broadcast rights revenue disbursement from the Big Ten office in late 2024. So that would put Notre Dame in line for in that range now. But again, that's the best way I can explain the private equity component. What was the second part of the question?
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Well,
the Troy Nicholas is a great nod to Pete, if you recall, USC week when he said, I don't remember any numbers or any names," and then he recounted exactly what he did to USC's opposing quarterback in high school, Max
Max
Whittek.
Whittick.
Yes. So Troy Nicholas would play coy with the media in terms of his intelligence, but
Love that guy.
then he responded by basically detailing a play and every aspect of the play where he intercepted Max Whittek for a touchdown. And
Yeah, he reminded us it was on TV too.
yes, he did. It was one of the better interviews you're going to see because Troy did not. He's like, I don't really remember numbers and names, but and then he just went down an entire list of all his accomplishments on one play.
and
Next question.
oh,
Oh,
I was just
sorry.
gonna add with USC and Michigan, my understanding is that their issue is that given how much prices and costs and how much teams need to expend is going up exponentially, I think each team in the conference would get like 100 million at minimum from this deal if they did it. Their issue is that they don't see it solving things long term, and those issues are still going to be present. And this isn't something you can just keep doing perpetually. So their issue is like, why are we solving it to? It's really going to address some of the lower tier teams in the Big Ten, and it's not a long term solution. So they're going to do something that kind of pigeonholes them. I think they'd have to extend the rights deal in the Big Ten even further and things like that. So they're pushing back. My understanding, at least, is because they don't see it as a long term fix, and it kind of puts them in a bad position potentially when they don't have those same issues and they're much more prominent brands. It kind of speaks to the value of Notre Dame's independence, and they don't have to prop up maybe less prominent teams in their conference.
Or they just don't have to deal with like ridiculous governance at the top of their conference. Like when there's a Michigan source coming out and saying like Tony Petitti is trying to tear apart our conference, like that's not good. We can all like chortle at the Big Ten and its dysfunction right now, but like I of all the coverage of this, and there's been a lot written and I've read a lot of it, like I would just like to know what the commissioner of the Big Ten is going to get out of this. That's to me the most interesting thing because it just I don't know. It doesn't add up in a lot of ways.
I think Michigan and USC should just also with Texas join the ranks of the best conference in the world, the Independent Conference. Pete Sampson, be all set.
With UConn, yeah.
Have another border war, maybe. Is that what it was called? Next question from Jimmy's and Joe's. Will Notre Dame's newly constructed offensive line be able to block Pitt? And I mean that in the running game mostly. Glad he said that because they have done a very good job protecting CJ Carr.
Great question. I mean, this is my other big concern about Saturday. I think the secondary will be fine, but are they going to be able to run the ball against even numbers? I don't know. But I think Pitt is not going to give them even numbers. I think they're going to put an extra guy in the box, and then CJ Carr is just going to throw over the top of them. But I'm quite curious to see how that Jimmy's and Joe's is spot on. I don't Otting, Absher, Lambert, like I think they're good. Not sure if good is going to like cut it for 4 quarters on Saturday in the run game.
Yeah, I mean that to me is the singular key to the game, and it's the Notre Dame O line versus the Pitt D line, both in the run game and holding up to give CJ Carr time to throw over the top. I believe the aggressiveness of the Pittsburgh defense will not only allow CJ Carr to throw over the top, but also potentially to hit some guys dragging across the middle on some underneath stuff in that second level of the field. As we've talked about, CJ Carr is so good at throwing to the first, second, and third levels. That's what's probably impressed me the most about his debut campaign. But Notre Dame has to hold up to give him the time to get rid of the ball. That starts with how effectively it run blocks, but it still has to hold up against that front. Otherwise, now I would note that West Virginia team that I talked about as not being very good nonetheless ran for 175 yards against Pittsburgh, and it was down almost the entire day. It was down 10 minutes with less, I mean, 10 points with less than 6 minutes to go in the game, and still ran for a buck 75. Now, part of that was because the Mountaineers knew they had to shorten the game to have a chance to pull the upset. But teams have still had some success running against Pitt. And I think that Notre Dame has to establish that. And I think a fast start for Notre Dame also is critical.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt is, I mean, if you look at yards per carry, they're first nationally. They haven't necessarily played the toughest schedule. I think with Notre Dame specifically, what would have me concerned if I'm a Notre Dame fan is that they played Miami, which wasn't their best rushing day. And Miami is top 10 in yards per carry. But after that, I think Navy is the next toughest rush defense when you look at that statistic. It's 63rd nationally. So Notre Dame hasn't always faced that competent of rush defenses if you look at that. And then kind of off of JV's point, the Louisville is one of the best rush offenses that Pitt has played this year. And they held them to, I think, 1.56 yards per carry. So they have showed up against some good teams. And I think, yeah, Louisville ranks like 22nd in yards per carry. And they got pretty much shut down by Pitt.
Interesting note, Pitt and Notre Dame are very close in terms of first downs allowed per game on the season rush defense. They're in that 6.5 range. Pittsburgh, though, in the last 3 games, number one in the country at 4.3 first downs allowed rushing. Now that does include 2 very poor rushing offenses, but 1 good one in NC State. So you like Notre Dame gets 8 first downs rushing. That bodes well, more than Pitt would normally give up, and that you're including games against Duquesne and Syracuse and Stanford, of course, too, which obviously Notre Dame is not.
And NC State, that's a good point, T.O. But NC State did finish that game with 160 rushing yards and averaged like 8.5 yards per attempt. It was just a deal where some turnovers in Pitt's early lead, I don't think allowed NC State to use the ground game as much. And that Florida State game down at Florida State that Pitt won really close, had a big lead, then think had to come back and win it late, 34-31. I believe the Noles ran for about $170 as well. So 3 of those foes, you talk about West Virginia, Florida State, and NC State, they've all rushed for 160 plus yards against Pitt this season.
Our next question comes from BWAC29. ND is 89th in the country in passing yards allowed, 232 per game. Is this flaw masked by the low scores against the weaker teams in the schedule, or indicative of a bend don't break defense that's doing what it intends to do?
The last part's why I included this. And Pete, I think everybody here knows we don't use really passing yards allowed doesn't matter as a
Right.
stat. They're 24th in pass efficiency defense. Remember, the 2007 Fighting Irish ranked second nationally in passing yards allowed because they just ran against them. But I do think this is an important question for this week because the way Notre Dame approached USC was, all right, you're going to have to beat us by completing more passes downfield against our good secondary, and you're going to have to, and you're not going to run the ball at all. So we're going to put you in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. I think they're going to try to put Pittsburgh in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and say, all right, you guys won 4 plays, we won 10, and we know you won't be able to run the ball on us. It's an interesting. It's the opposite of Al Golden, John Bryce. It is Al Golden said, go ahead and run it. Chris Ash says, go ahead and pass it. We'll handle it.
Yeah, and I do think it's more of the latter, the bend but don't break. I think that the field shrinks in the red zone, as the phrase goes. Notre Dame has been better in that regard, and I think that Notre Dame believes that it can pressure Mason Heinschel and present some looks and cause some confusion and get him uncomfortable and force a turnover. And Mason Heinschel in his hot streak and in Pitt's winning streak hasn't seen a defense like Notre Dame's. There's not very many good defenses, in my opinion, in the ACC this year. And he's capitalized on that all to his credit. I'm taking nothing away from him, but this is a different beast. This is another guy. Al Golden, we know, would have been able to conjure up some stuff to terrorize Mason Heinschel, especially with his blend of college and NFL expertise. But I think Chris Ash has grown in his role and what he's able to call on his guys to do. So, yeah, the pass yards allowed, if you had your druthers, you wouldn't have that be the case that they were 89th, but it's points on the board, and Notre Dame has been good in that regard.
Yeah, agree with all that. I mean, the yards A&M is a long time ago. Not sure how relevant that is today. USC more game plan specific. That is relevant for this weekend, I think. But Tay Johnson is 3 times the player he was in September. Secondary should be healthy. And the pass efficiency is the most important thing. And Notre Dame is, while they're not elite like they were last year, they're good now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is if they're going to let them pass, are they getting turnovers like they did against USC too? Because Heitschel, for as good as he's been, I think in his 5 starts, he's had 5 interceptions. Notre Dame at least was leading the nation in interceptions. I think Pitt has lost 16 turnovers on the year too. So they're a team that does turn the ball over. So I think part of that bend don't break is we're gonna get our hands on the ball and get the ball back. And if that happens, I think that's gonna bode well for Notre Dame.
Next question comes from Strider22 or Stride3R22, depending on how cool he's being with his handle. Given ND's penalty woes this year, minus last week, of course, coupled with Pittsburgh being 128th nationally in penalties and the same ACC refs as the NC State game, how many penalties do you think ND can endure and still walk away with the win? I did not include this for point of lament of officiating, but because you're playing Pat Narduzzi, who is going to come up and challenge you, and they're going to grab, and Notre Dame's going to grab as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this is called in the secondary more than anywhere else for me.
Yeah, I'd say what's the over under on PIs?
Yeah, wow,
4.5.
Yeah,
Collectively,
Yeah, collectively in the game.
oh, I think maybe even higher.
Yeah, all right, you're betting the
Really?
over there.
Yeah, I'd take the over on that.
Wow. I would probably set it. I'll take the under just to be a contrarian.
I think Christian Gray had that over against USC, so I think it could go over with. I'm not kidding. I think he had a hold and four and three pass interference penalties, but I do think the how it's called on the outside is going to be important. But it's the first time Notre Dame has played Pat Narduzzi where how it's called on the outside could benefit Notre Dame if they let clutching and grabbing going.
Well, I still would be a little concerned on penalties along the offensive interior, depending on how we see Notre Dame's revamped, rebuilt offensive line holding up, particularly at left guard and center. That's my concern there. And again, given the way that Pittsburgh wants to and likes to pressure the quarterback, Knapp has done a really nice job. I saw that he was PFF's highest rated college offensive tackle last weekend. But what Navy brings at you is not exactly like what Pitt brings at you. So it's another significant test. I mean, this is a very, very important resume game for Notre Dame in every sense of the word.
I think just in terms of penalties, it goes back to what Marcus Freeman likes to say: are they aggressive versus selfish penalties? Which I think, going to Pete's point, if it's pass interference, like those are type of things you can let go, given how Notre Dame plays defense. But if it's a lot of holding calls to Bryce's point and some of those silly personal fouls and hitting guys late, and yeah, celebrate, like they can't take too many of those. It's worth noting they did beat Boise State 28-7 while getting flagged 11 times. So I don't think they want to get to 11 again, but they have won games when they've gotten that high.
They won at Texas A&M to open last season,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken, with either 10 or 11 penalties.
They did at NC State too in the Audric Estime game. It happens once a year, and you just got to make sure they're not the dumbest penalties in the world, which they usually have been. Because I mean,
You can't have 11 penalties and 3 turnovers. So
yes, that's a good point. Our next question, we kind of touched on this in segment one, but I think it's worth revisiting because it's going to come up in this game. Donnelly 34-34. What are your thoughts on this statement? The short yardage and red zone struggles are more about Mike Denbrock's play calling and situational awareness than personnel or execution.
I think Mike Denbrock knows how to score points in the red zone, so I'm going to go with the execution. I know that's a kind of a Freeman stock answer, but it's not. I think the idea that Denbrock is just like banging his head against the wall here and like calling the same stuff is wildly inaccurate. Considering the Wildcat has come and gone from our lives,
Yeah.
hopefully not to return. I mean, they're just trying different stuff. Like they tried two back at Miami, it didn't work. They tried Wildcat at AM, didn't work. Like they're just searching for stuff right now. But I don't think that has to do with a lack of awareness from the offensive coordinator.
yeah, but behind Team Glory, I would contend that Marcus Freeman's favorite phrase this year is he knows the definition of insanity. And so if he knows it, you can darn sure bet that Denbrock knows it. And we haven't seen them calling the same mess every week inside the 5-yard line.
It's a
So
different mess.
right. I do think it's execution and personnel. I mean, we discussed at length coming into this season what Denbrock did with LSU's offense in the red zone, especially in year 2 of running the LSU offense when they set all those records. And sure, he had a Heisman Trophy winner. He was also playing in the SEC, and they did some great things in the red zone. It has been personnel and execution. If you had Charles Jagasaw and Billy Schrauth and
Ashton Craig.
you'd have a hell of a lot better chance of plowing in from the 2-yard line or the
Cooper
1 yard line.
Flanagan
Yeah.
with a good Achilles.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's not excuse making, but that's why I'm telling you, I think it's more personnel and execution than I do think it's coaching.
I agree. Sometimes it's just offensive linemen getting beat, like to Pete's point earlier, when you have multiple defenders getting in the backfield. It's not always just because that was a terrible play call or they didn't allot for what they needed to pick up. It's just guys are missing their blocks, and that makes it really hard to run the ball in short yardage.
NC
This
State in particular, like go when you watch the NC State game back, I think it was Jadarian Price, it may have been right before the fumble. Like Eli Raridon gets whipped. Like I think, and maybe Knapp did too. Like they've had some just that guy won that rep. And when you're in a condensed situation down by the goal line, like there's not a lot of space to make up for it because everyone is right on top of you all the time. I guess another way, like Jeremiah Love's spin and score touchdown doesn't happen on first and goal from the 9 because there are just too many defenders around. It's just everything is condensed and pressurized down there, and their offensive line, I think it's good, but it's not great. I mean, it wasn't a finalist for the Joe Moore Award or semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, and I think that's fair. Like it's just the offensive line's been good, but it hasn't been dominant in the trenches like I thought it could have been with everyone healthy.
That was going to kind of be my point, Pete, is it's a very nice Notre Dame offensive line. It's not an elite offensive line. I don't think for a number of reasons it is played at the level many expected it to play at when camp opened. And part of that started July 4th weekend. The other thing I would point out, and this answer from the coach at the time drove me nuts, and I thought it was trite and excuse making, but I'd ask about a play or a particularly bad fourth quarter and what happened there. And he looked at me and he said, well, they're on scholarship too. So like those Pitt players, you're not playing school for the deaf. You're playing some guys that are on scholarship and also getting paid.
I to put a bow on this one, I do think blocking it's more than one thing, as we always say, Pete. Yeah, I do think interior blocking or just blocking in general is the biggest element of these five issues. Wildcat does go to play calling. I know execution was involved in that too, but Wildcat would be involved. Thankfully, it's gone. Decision making at quarterback has been a couple times. I mean, that's been at least three goal to goes that did not work out. Maybe four. No, that wouldn't be on CJ Carr. Eli Raridon was covered. At least three times though. Marcus Freeman or twice. Marcus Freeman has mentioned that they knew we thought we had them and they covered what we wanted to call
Mm-hmm.
twice. It happened again was USC with Eli Raridon. So that's three of those things. It all adds up. And then there's execution every once in a while too. I don't love Jadarian Price in short yardage situations. I think we've talked about that for 2 years now. He's a little better now, but he's not really good at it. I don't know why Jeremiah Love wouldn't be. As you guys said in the first segment, he's gotten better at it, but he wasn't great at it at the beginning of the year because he was still looking to bounce things outside. So, as usual, it's more than one thing. But it can't be as much one thing this week because they're going to drive and they need to finish.
All right. Question number 7 here. I'm reading this one from CP11. What distance would you feel comfortable kicking a field goal this week, considering Notre Dame's kicking woes and also the history of awful turf at Acrisure Stadium, formerly the Big Ketchup Bottle?
I'm a bad kicker, so I would not feel comfortable kicking at all.
There is no distance that I would feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. For myself, yeah, I definitely don't think I can make a field goal. So, for even Notre Dame this weekend, I think I wrote down the distance of an extra point because it's the only thing we've seen it's the only thing seen Eric Schmidt make this year. And I even asked Marcus Freeman today about what's different about his routine, which he really emphasized on Monday. And I don't think he'd said that much that makes me think it's going to be significantly different if he has to make a kick under pressure after what we saw against Boston College.
When's a good time to kick here? You drive down, you get stopped, go for a 3-0 lead, and you kick a 34-yarder, and then all of a sudden everybody's a little bit you feel a little bit better, or you just think they're if it's not 4th and 8, they're going.
I think if it's not 4th and 8, they're going. Especially early in the game. Look, that's Marcus Freeman's tendency anyway. He very clearly wants to always send a message. Very clearly wants to always play aggressively. So I don't know that there's a right if you're up 10 and you've won the coin toss, so that means we already know that Notre Dame gets the ball to start the second half because they won the coin toss and they never take it first. Then if you're up 10 and you get down there, you roll the dice because you know you're getting the ball and you
Mhm.
say, "What the hell? We'll try this 38 yarder."
USC end half situation. The USC end half situation is what you're
Yeah, but
saying.
Yes.
I don't, like I would put an addendum on this question and ask you guys, saying you would not kick a field goal is not an option. It's 31 all and you're driving down to try and win the game late. How far do you have Pete? I'm just asking a hypothetical field goal question and you're going into anaphylactic shock.
Oh my gosh.
Pete's like,
Well,
I
if it's 31-31, they already made a field goal, right?
There you
ooh,
go.
good call.
Okay.
Or
So
they
I
missed
mean,
a lot
really,
of
let's rephrase. It's 28-28.
could miss. Yeah, 28 at 28 is a good point.
That's
That's a
fine.
good
It's
call.
28 all. You have to attempt a field goal to win the game or you know you're going to overtime. How far do you have to get?
Oh, I mean, I extra point. Honestly, I don't.
I mean, I think it has to be an inside of 40 yards for the attempt, not inside the 40-yard line. It has to be an inside 40-yard attempt. I would say in that 38, 39 range to where you feel like this is more than a coin toss. We're going to kick this and get out of here with a win.
In
Is
the
there a
red zone.
Yeah, that's what I
In
was
the
going to
red
say.
zone.
Right inside the red zone, kick a 37-yarder. I have a question for you guys that I don't know this because I can't kick. Is Eric Schmidt better off booting one he's not supposed to hit at the end of the half than a 41-yarder? And
He
just
I
does
mean,
have the he has the
muscle
leg
memory
for
goes
it.
in. Yeah, and he has the leg for it, and muscle memory just kicks in.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Jeter, what end of the half against IU kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, just lit into it.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're workshopping ideas here to get Eric Schmidt going.
That's good. From Irish Gam, this someone that doesn't know about Notre Dame's kicking problem is listening to this right now, going, "What's going on over there? I don't understand
Coming
this."
up with ideas.
From Irish Gambler, do you expect Pitt to play a lot of press man coverage as they have previously against the Irish in the past? The answer to that is yes. If so, who plays the role of Will Fuller? And what previous Pitt game will this feel most like? I thought about you on this one, Pete Sampson, and don't make a Will Fuller Tim O'Malley joke, but that
Yeah,
could be the answer.
I mean, I think it probably will feel like 2015. Maybe it'd feel like 2005. You know, every 10 years, Notre Dame goes to Pittsburgh and they play well offensively, but like Pitt at least hangs around a little bit. So I think one of those. I think Pitt will score on Notre Dame. I just don't think Pitt just hasn't been tested like the way Notre Dame's going to test them offensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Drew.
I would say, yeah, I agree. I think I wrote down 2015. Not that I really remember that game as well as you guys do, but in terms of the score and what my prediction was, it seemed to be most in line. But yeah, I mean, for as Pitt's on a 5 game win streak, and I know that's getting talked a lot about, but I think I looked at those teams and they have a combined 16-32 record right now. So I agree, Pitt really hasn't been tested, and also haven't faced a defense like Notre Dame's yet this year too. So
That is my call too. I don't think it's going to get to 42-30. That got a little loose. If they had Will Fuller, it would get to 42 something. I will tell you that much. Because Pete, as you know, that guy gets open.
Yeah. Especially when
Um,
you cover him with a safety one-on-one over the
Yeah.
top.
what
Genius.
I would say is we know it's not going to be the 1914 game of a few years ago or whatever.
No.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
It's not going to be anything like that. I think Jordan Faison plays the Will Fuller role. That's my prediction for this game. So that's how I would answer that question.
I agree with you on Faison because teams have been giving him room and Pitt won't as much. Teams have been giving him room since the Purdue game, I think. The Fields matchup is really interesting though because you know CJ Carr is going to Malachi Fields multiple times, 1-on-1 on the boundary, 1st and 10, 2nd and 9. It's just going there. Does he draw pass interference right away like he did against Navy? Does Pitt care if he draws pass interference one time? It's going to be fun to watch. I never do it. I'm going to make myself not watch the lines. I'm going to watch the perimeter as much as I can during this game. And that way, when everybody asks me questions post game, what happened, I'll have no idea, but I will know if Malachi Fields was open or not. That's all that matters.
From Pitt hit lore, I'm going through the roster to make sure Notre Dame, they're duplicate numbers, who are single digits, just to make sure nobody gets on the field at the same time in field goal block. And
Desperado. That was the name of it.
I think that they're in good shape unless you get Faison and Christian Gray out there at the same time.
Yeah, that would have been one way to lose a game. But Brian Kelly's coach of the year award would have had some problems there if they lost because the number twos on the field against Pittsburgh.
Ooh, oh, Tay Johnson and Eli Raridon.
Oh, there it is. That's the field goal.
That's happening.
You can tell them apart. That's the key. Question number 9, and we're going to lead into predictions here. This one begins for Pete. Malloy on base. Pete's prediction on his show, The Independent, shocked me. There are a number of reasons as to why I believe Pitt will cover. Help me understand why they will not. Let's have Pete go first on this one, and then you guys for the next one.
My prediction was 38-18. I'm 38-17 on my other show. I realize that includes a field goal. But I think that Notre Dame's good for 5 touchdowns. And I've sort of been stuck in the 40-point range. Wouldn't shock me if they got over that. I just think Pitt's ability to gum up the run game will be enough to stop Notre Dame from really running away with it. But Pitt has not been tested the way that Notre Dame is going to test them. I realize Notre Dame didn't play well 2 weeks ago, but I think if you looked at the 7-game win streak, poor first half against Purdue, Boston College was kind of mess around. Other than that, I feel like they're playing good football. So I would tend to go with like the rule of the last 7 games opposed to the exception. And you can never rule out Narduzzi having his team in just a really bizarre frame of mind. And I think that is an advantage for Notre Dame as well.
I have 35-20.
Yeah, that's close to me too.
So I think it's kind of that includes a missed field goal. So a little different there. But I think this is a day where CJ Carr's just really going to be able to throw the ball. I mean, you look at, even though Louisville had their run shut down, Miller Moss, who I don't even think is that good of a quarterback, threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think it's going to be that kind of day where even if they're selling out to stop the run, Notre Dame has shown that they can hit the downfield passes, and that's going to be a huge difference. And again, I just don't think, for as good as well as Pitt has started to play, a lot of their momentum just comes against teams that aren't that good. NC State's the best team they've beat on this win streak, and they're 5-4, and Notre Dame blew them out pretty easily too.
JB, before you give your, I'm going to read you part 2 here before you give your prediction, because I talked to Tim Murray from our pal in Vegas.
Dude.
Why has this line been so active? It opened at 10. It's as high as 12 and a hook now. What do bettors see the rest of us may not? Other than turnovers, what might keep this close? JB, what do bettors see the others do not? And Tim Murray said he thinks we'll go to 13 on game day.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I think it ties into what we kind of all just outlined. The ACC is not very good. Pittsburgh deserves plenty of credit for putting together this 6-game winning streak after 2 losses that really threatened to completely peel apart their entire season. Especially, I think it was 2 losses in a row, and Florida State on the road was the very next game. And you were thinking, oh man, Pitt could lose 3, 4, 5 games in a row here or 4 out of 5 or whatever with NC State also viewed as a tough matchup during that stretch. And Mason Heinschel is a rookie quarterback. As I'm wont to do, I have checked the weather forecast for Saturday because that weighs into field goals and that weighs into playing conditions and that weighs into playing styles. And as of right now, it's supposed to be pretty windy. 10-mile-an-hour winds and some gusts, 58 degrees, but a significant chance of rain Saturday afternoon in Pittsburgh, gentlemen. And 43% at kickoff at noon, 43% on into the 1 o'clock hour. So it looks like weather could be a factor. But why the line is that? All of those reasons. Pitt has gotten pretty fat off of a very mediocre conference schedule. They lost to a really bad West Virginia team. They have a true freshman quarterback. Notre Dame is playing really well. Notre Dame has played a tougher schedule. Notre Dame has more on the line and has to perform well. So all of those reasons, I was going with a 38-28 score for my final with the Irish winning, and felt really good about it because I had a big comeback trivia win at Morris Park earlier this week and beat Larry Acker's juggernaut team to win in first place and to earn a little cash in the process. But the weather has me reevaluating, but I'm still going to upset the apple cart and go with a made field goal and I will go with a 31-23 Irish win.
I got another, this is not Tim Murray's line, but he got a good line from a sports book. Actually, Tim did say, I will say the sharp guys bet Indy every single week. That's why he thinks it gets bet up to 13 eventually. From a sports director out in Vegas, the betting markets love Notre Dame. They steam every week, was the exact quote. Don't really 100% know what that means, but I love that quote right there. I am in the 35-24 range. I consider doing 35-23, and I think that when it all hit those staff picks, I might do 35-23 purposefully because
Yeah.
Pitt getting down there and kicking field goals is what they do against defenses that aren't as good as Notre Dame.
Mm.
So I'll go 35-23. That keeps it not quite a Notre Dame cover in my world of 12 and a half right now, which is what it is. The over-under did come down a little. Maybe it's to JB's point about the weather. It's down to 54 and a half. Didn't it start at 56?
I think you're right. And then also it is worth noting this game wasn't a sellout until Tuesday or Wednesday, but it is officially a sellout. Um, how will that potential ugly weather impact the crowd, especially at noon? Interesting thing to consider.
Did they run a special like 10 tickets for $103?
I think that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, you got $1 off for every point Notre Dame had scored in the previous two meetings.
I was going to make an Aaron Donald, Steve Elmer joke, but it is worth noting that as well as Steve Elmer played in that game, Pete Sampson, Notre Dame did lose that game in the famous
Yeah.
Steve Elmer, Aaron Donald game.
Kind of one of those like I think Notre Dame won. Actually, no, they didn't.
No, they didn't. Yeah, if you guys don't know this, Aaron Donald against Notre Dame in his last year, he had one tackle, and it wasn't for loss against Steve Elmer and the Irish interior line. Now, they won the game 28-21 against Charlie Weiss in his third to last game, but it was the strangest thing ever. Who stops Aaron Donald? Just Steve Elmo, who retired from football 1 year later as a true junior to go in.
Do you? I actually ran into Harry. I had talked to Harry Heastan about that game, and he said that Aaron Donald remembered him in the pros. He was
Really?
like, "Oh, I remember you."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, if Aaron Donald walks through that door, I will change my pick. But if he does not, I am sticking with the 35-23 range. I don't think the interior will handle him well at all, even at his age. He wouldn't need pads either. But we will be reporting live from not Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium. Used to be Heinz Field. Heinz Field at one point, Pete Sampson did have the best prime rib in the history of carving stations at games. I'm not sure we're going to get that. You could get the eggs because it's a noon game.
In an NFL stadium, they deliver.
They do deliver unless you're in Soldier Field. Sorry, Jack Freeman. For Drew Mentok of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, Pete Sampson of The Athletic, I am Tim O'Malley. Thank you for watching and listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.